Hello, everyone, and welcome to Digital Disruption in the Legal Industry. I see we have a few attendees that have joined us. We'll give it another minute as others join and look forward to kicking off. All right. And with that, hello, everyone. And on behalf of the team at Kolleno, I'd like to welcome you to our webinar on digital disruption in the legal industry. My name is Gibran Larabur. I'm Chief of Staff here at Kolleno and will be your webinar host and moderator for today. I'm also excited to be joined by two panelists today. So first we have Robert Hanna, founder and managing director of KC Partners and legal community builder. Welcome, Robert. Glad to have you on board. And maybe as we kick off, I'll just hand it over to you for a minute for a quick introduction.
Yes, well, firstly, thank you so much to yourself, Yuri, and everyone at Kolleno for having me, and to all of you for tuning in today. It's a real pleasure to be here. I am the proud founder of KC Partners, and as you very kindly mentioned, a legal community builder. And my mission is really to build a kind, more collaborative, and happier legal community. I'm also the super proud host of the Legally Speaking podcast. We're in the top 1% of podcasts globally and sponsored by the legal tech unicorn business Clio. And I'm also just launched a new venture called Legally Speaking Club, which is going to help law firms excel in short form video, as I believe that is the uptick of the future in terms of generating key clients. So that's me. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. And we're also joined by Yuri Depson, legal AR specialist at Kolleno. Hey, Yuri, happy to have you join us today. I'll hand it over to you just for a quick introduction to the audience.
Hey, Gibran, good to see you again. And Rob, also you, very excited for this. So I'm Uri. I am part of the team here at Kolleno, and I work with firms daily. We're working with firms to help them improve their efficiency and improve their modality and their operations, leveraging technology and automation, but with a specific focus on their cash flow, helping them, just improve their payment processes, gateways, everything to do with firm finances, essentially. But in my day-to-day conversations, we encounter all types of other challenges that they're facing and understanding. So it's an exciting opportunity. I've been following Rob for a while, so it's an exciting opportunity for me, listening to him and his podcasts and speak. Actually, I first met him at a conference and hearing him speak, and now being able to share the platform with him and share my insights as well and what we learn here at Kolleno.
Perfect. Fantastic. Well, as we move forward, we'll be touching a little bit on the current economic landscape and some of the key challenges and considerations that we've heard, from the legal community. But bulk of the conversation will really be focused on, touching upon some of the new and emerging digital tools that are available and specifically focused on the legal industry and how law firms are really responding and utilizing these tools to help in their day-to-day operations. So, we'll kick off with a bit of a moderated discussion with our panelists, and then at the end we'll also have a Q&A with the attendees. And so for everyone that's joined, as we go through, please feel free to put in any questions that you have, and we'll be sure to set aside some time at the end to touch upon those as we move forward. But before we jump in, I just wanted to share with the audience, a few key highlights from the latest 2022 Clio Legal Trends Report that I think really help to shine some light into the topic that we're going to be, discussing today. So as outlined in the report, over the past year or so, there's been a real rise in demand for legal services as some of the disruptive elements of the pandemic have really began to recede. So this has presented, some financial opportunity for many firms. But at the same time, in the current economic climate, we're also seeing, rising inflationary pressures, which, inflation is starting to increase at a faster pace than, rates. We're also seeing increasing payroll and operating costs and a very competitive talent market that's really, you know, starting to present some key challenges for law firms in the year ahead. And so specific from our conversations with a number of firms, there's a few key topics that really kind of stand out. The first, as we go into the new year, you know, is how do firms and how can firms, you know, maintain a healthy and positive cash flow as we move forward? You know, one thing to highlight in the report is that, you know, currently the average law firm collects only $748 for every 1,000 of billable work, leaving about 34% more revenue that could be optimized through realization and collection rates. So key question is, you know, how do we maintain a healthy cash flow as we go into the new year? You know, second question that we're also hearing is, you know, how do we do this, you know, the law firm sustainably and efficiently grow our operations? You know, and a key stat from the latest Clio report, you know, points out that 86% of lawyers are now working outside of the typical workday. So, you know, beginning between 8 and 9, you know, and 73% are really working outside of your regular business days. So outside of the Monday to Friday, going into the weekends to be able to meet their client needs. You know, third thing that we're also hearing is, you know, how do we attract and retain legal talent, you know, especially in this climate? You know, and as the report states, you know, in the past 12 months, nearly 1 in 5 lawyers have left the law firm that they were working for, and about 9% reported that they were planning to leave the firm in the next 6 months. So this is a key question, and Robert, I know we'll be touching on this as we go forward. You know, how do we attract and retain legal talent, and what role do digital tools help us to do this? You know, and then finally is really offering more modern client-centered services. You know, how do we use technology, and how can the industry use technology to create more client-centered services and deliver more client-centered elements for their clients as we go into the new year? And, you know, I think a key solution to underlying all of this is really, you know, a lot of the tools that we're seeing in the digital space and a lot of the tools that we'll be touching on today. And so the focus of today will be really to kind of go through and talk about some of the technologies and some of the things that we're seeing that are really helping to make a dent in these areas for law firms. But Robert, maybe I'll start, you know, with you. It's really clear that, you know, the economic climate is going to present a number of challenges for the industry as we go into the new year. So what changes are you really seeing firms adopt in order to, you know, prepare themselves and help navigate this uncertainty?
Yeah, well, I think firstly, excellent overview. And before we talk sort of all things tech, you know, given the current landscape, I just want to talk about mindset very, very briefly, because resilience is going to be so important, because law firms are going to experience a number of challenges as we move into 2023, and they are going to need to adopt this notion of the anti-fragile mindset. And I'll talk about anti-fragility a little bit later on. I just want to talk about 2 quotes that really land well with me, and I hope land with you as lawyers and law firm owners when it comes to this resilience piece. And they're by Winston Churchill. And he says, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts." And the second one is really important. "The pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty." So I just want to sort of set that stone in there, because courage and optimism are very, very important. It's the law firm leaders that are actually asking what is rather than what if are actually succeeding in the current times, because we've seen, and you mentioned there, volatility is the new normal, but actually the trend has been, you know, 20% up on matter creation rates, 35% increase in billable hours. So actually this new normal, people who are capitalizing are the ones that are championing these new ways of work and actually investing in technology, which we're going to talk about. And I want to talk about Jack Newton's keynote speech at ClioCon, if any of you had a chance to look at that, because he talks about the traditional bricks and mortar and pen and paper law firms historically have thrived. Makes sense. But COVID-19, the last few years have actually outdated those business models because they've been proved to be rigid and fragile. So firms that are actually looking at moving towards a tech-based solution are producing more of an anti-fragile mindset. And I want to share some data with the Clio's digital maturity report, because this is going to lead on to what I want to say next. And in the report, it says some key findings which are around client expectations and the growing digital landscape. So people do business with people who have a good digital landscape. So People within organizations that provide personalized content, only 3% of law firms tested to show signs of that personalization on their actual website. 82% of the people surveyed prefer brands with a content presence, so videos, vlogs, images, infographics, yet only 52% of law firms actually tested to leverage video content on their websites. 80% of people look for law firms online, yet only 17% actually tested follow the search engine optimization best practices. And 74% of law firms tested poorly on audience size. So there's a real opportunity here for law firms that are embracing the likes of search engine optimization and search engine research and identifying new conversation and merchandising that across platforms to actually win. Because little things like linking your on-site profile with social media can mean you can deliver more sales, support journeys wherever possible to your clients. So the three things that Jack Newton talked about and where the firms are doing well now that are succeeding in the modern times, in these uncertain times, is around number one, connection. So I talked about there some of the statistics around personalization, more people, more client-centered, and that was touched on in the introduction, because people are wanting that human-to-human connection with their lawyers. So that allows lawyers to build, and firms that allow people to build a personal brand, their lawyers to express them, to be themselves, to be visible. That's a really good way for you to stand out and create that connection with your people internally, but also your clients. The second point Jack really highlighted was around creativity. So it's about maybe thinking globally, but acting locally. So what do clients and people within your local community want and need from you as a firm? And the third point, of course, is technology. And this is really key to being agile and having the ability to embrace it. But a lot of people think about technology, about reinventing the wheel. It's not always about doing more, but it's actually adapting the systems and processes you already have in place to get more done. So upskilling team members so they actually understand how to use the full utilization of the systems in place, and also adopting AI best practices where possible. Because did you know, for example, that 98% of text messages are actually read and acted on more than emails? So firms that are actually using to think about data about client onboarding, recruitment, experiences is super, super important. So when those three metrics work in harmony, those are the sort of firms that are doing well because they're leveraging technology for a better tomorrow. And the other point I would just briefly touch on is around community. You know, law firms that are really understanding this collaboration is domination, we is greater than me, I always say, are succeeding. Yuri mentioned that this is an example of a collaboration together, two communities coming together to deliver value. How can you think about things within your community and collaborate to actually stand out? And then in terms of adopting digital tools for themselves for the future, I mean, we're going to see Web3 technology, the blockchain, smart contracts, peer-to-peer networking, cryptocurrency technology come in. We're going to see avatars and AI. You probably can't go anywhere right now online or LinkedIn and not talk about ChatGPT, which is an optimized language model dialogue, which enables you to interact with in a conversational way. So it can allow you to follow up on questions, draft emails, admit mistakes, challenge any incorrect premises, and so many other things. So we're going to see more and more AI coming in. We're going to be looking at even in more enhanced document automation tools, even better e-discovery tools, legal research tools, mobile apps are going to become far more advanced, and marketing in particular as well. People are going to be using a lot more AI. So if you have a podcast or a webinar, you should be using a platform like otter.ai, for example, today. That will give you the whole transcript from today's session. You can then create that into a newsletter, a blog, which will be SEO compliant, and you're letting the tech work for you to give you extra distribution when you go out online. And looking at things like pricing as well, and platforms like Legal Drop, where you can actually use more transparent pricing and flexible models. So there's tons of tools out there. We'll talk more about them, but that's just generally, I'll leave it there.
Mm-hmm. And, Robert, you touched on a few different elements that, that really resonate. I think the first is really around this anti-fragile mindset. I mean, it's clear from, the report that you mentioned that there have been a number of steps within the industry to go along that digital journey, but there are still, quite a few steps and quite a few tools that are available out there. So, in your view, what are the biggest opportunities, the 2 to 3 biggest opportunities that you're seeing for, the legal industry itself? And, what have been some of the challenges historically that have, kind of limited some of that progress or some of that movement towards the, digitization?
The biggest overarching opportunity with all of this is time, because it's the one thing none of us can ever get back, right? So it's a big opportunity to win back more time through digital, because anywhere law firms apply technology and they streamline, they're going to speed up legal services, and it's just going to be a huge win for everybody, right? So you look at law firm technology and how it can actually serve more clients effectively. Let's go back, because you can shave hours off lawyers' workloads. Because in the past, a partner would email a workload query to the firm administrator, they'd wait for answers. Now partners can simply literally refer one-stop dashboards, track most relevant KPIs and make a decision, right? And they can also run ad hoc queries themselves. They can look at charts, graphs, context at a glance. So partners can get answers at the speed of light. So saving so much time where they can be investing time elsewhere. I think also in terms of increasing the process speed and allows you to allocate more hours. So technology actually can help you not only save time, but automate other processes. So things you can think about automating: tracking billable hours, pre-populating timesheets, enforcing billing guides, reviewing and routing pre-bills. You can actually look at sending notifications, time notifications to keep workflows on track. All of these little things. Remember, adopting what you already have to get more done. It isn't necessarily always about reinventing the wheel with this, and it's about tracking, gathering, reporting a lot of that financial information and data. And then in terms of just generally tracking budgets and flagging budget variances, all of these things are huge opportunities for actually getting more creativity, more created, but also saving you a lot of time. I think in terms of hurdles with all of this, the big hurdle I see is stakeholder management. So actually being able to convince people the need for change, senior leadership teams who have maybe been used to doing things in a certain way and it's always worked well to date. So why do we need to bother? And the reality is they'll probably look at it from a return on investment perspective, an ROI. I actually say that's the wrong way to look at it. I think you should look at it from a COI perspective, which is a cost of inaction. What is the cost to you of you not choosing to embrace tech, to be more efficient, to save more time, to create more opportunities for your lawyers to go into other areas? So I really want to kind of get into the notion of it's not always about the ROI. Of course, that's important, but actually looking about if you're not going to do it, what are you not getting as a competitive advantage as a result of that? And it will have so many different knock-on effects. Other things to think about, particularly as you go through a lot more digital, you're bringing in a lot more data. There's a lot more things to think about. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of cyber, digital security factors that you need to think about in terms of ensuring that you make sure you don't fall into any loopholes if you are using lots of tech or you are using lots of platforms and lots of data is going around. I think that's something to really think about. And then work arrangements will also be another hurdle, because we're seeing the increased adoption of remote work. It's no lie, it's here. And so providing flexibility, but also that can create some work-life balance issues. And you're touching on a few of the points again in the introduction about certain hours and how that's sort of coming in. And I think demand has been on the rise over the last 2 years with this volatile market that we're in. So it's actually being able to service potential ongoing demand in certain areas that are going to get busy. And as you mentioned, the economic climate is inevitably going to have a huge impact on inflation and the effects of this recession, which we haven't seen yet. But I will say this, that in terms of the current market, lawyers who are actively looking for jobs are still getting multiple offers. So we're not quite at the level of, the market has shut up shop yet. But there's just a few points I would mention around that.
And there's a few points, Robert, that you mentioned that I definitely want to touch upon, especially around the stakeholder management and talent and retention, which is critical for the audience. Yuri, I think one of the key topics that Robert touched on is really around like the billable hours and the cost of inaction. I think especially in this legal climate, and not just in the legal industry but across all industries. There are a number of questions around, how firms can effectively manage their cash flow and working capital. And so, what trends are you seeing within the industry to really help manage this as we go into the new year and as we manage this uncertainty?
Sure. Thanks, Gibran. And Robert, there's a lot to pick up on what you said, and definitely going to touch back to some of that. But, typically one of the questions we're asking all the time to the firms we're talking to is how much money are you leaving on the table? And a lot of firms typically, I think, being in the growth years, we've had that the bubble where we sat quite comfortably and we've become a little bit lax in our comfort. And a lot of the firms are talking to are saying, oh, in terms of cash flow, we're okay, we get by, we can swallow that pill, that difficult pill of some of our cash flows outstanding. But when we dig into the weeds a little bit and go down to the nuts and bolts of the actual process and their cash collection efficiency, what we see is sometimes firms, small firms are leaving £250,000 a year on the table, and that's just uncollected cash, money they've worked hard for, stayed up late for, missed family parties, birthdays, school plays, whatever it may be, to earn that money, and then it's just left lying on the table because they haven't had an effective process of collecting that money. And that's because sometimes, every business owner, every business person is always looking, where's the next buck going to come from? Who's going to be my next client? Where's my next big project? And we get very excited by that new potential influx of cash from a new business opportunity. But then what we do is we overlook that money that's currently owned because psychologically, it's that cognitive dissonance. I've sent the bill, they've received it, so I'm going to get paid. The reality is often very different. People are very, very busy. We're juggling multiple balls. We're dealing with different things in every single day, and things get forgotten about. And one of the unfortunate or the necessary evils of business is that you have to chase your clients for payment, and sometimes they forget, sometimes they lost the invoice. There's all types of excuses and reasons, and sometimes just the nature of business. They don't have the cash right now, but they will have it in 2 weeks or in a month. And I think one of the key areas that a lot of businesses are now looking to really address is visibility into all areas of the business, to say, and these are the questions I talk to lawyers and attorneys every day, and I ask them these questions, and they'd say, gosh, I don't know, right? And do you know what your current cash flow look? What are you invoicing month to month? What's your current, how much is currently owed to you? And I'll have to look that up, and that's fine. You look it up, but sometimes, there's a lot of vagueness in the data because this was paid, this wasn't paid. They don't have any visibility on what communication, what's being chased. Sometimes the customer, the clients themselves, don't even know that the invoice has been issued because it was made, but perhaps it wasn't sent, right? Perhaps it was sent, but it was to the wrong inbox. Whatever it may be, visibility is absolutely key. And to pick up on what Rob mentioned earlier with regards to the recession that we're not quite feeling the effects of, we're definitely feeling the effects of inflation. But as businesses now begin to brace themselves for that recession and for the impacts of inflation, they're looking where they can cut costs and where they can really make themselves super efficient. And that efficiency is really going to come down to having visibility in the data. If you have real visibility, strong visibility into where your business is right now, and are able to effectively forecast, they'll be able to say, right, this is where I need to improve efficiency, this is where I can cut costs, and actually this is where I can collect perhaps more money faster. So one of our clients we conducted a case study with, they were able to recover $280,000 in just 3 months of overdue payments, and that's money that they were owed, but simply by implementing a very strategic automated workflow, it was set and forget. They didn't have to do anything, but now they have extra cash flowing in every month, which took that pressure off of them. And now that maybe they're able to hire another fee earner, they're able to have the extra person on admin free up their time to focus on other key tasks they have to do. And it gives them just that room to breathe and focus on other key tasks and really focus on their growth and how they're going to ride the waves of both inflation and a recession at the same time.
And you touched a lot on visibility, which I think is key. There's also a second element that you touched upon, especially when you're going through that chasing process. And Rob, you also touched upon this as well. It's around this notion of like client centricity, right? So, how do these digital tools help, enable the firms not only to get visibility, but also, provide a more client-centric experience?
Sure. So one of the things that Rob mentioned earlier is that the personalization. You want to feel, you're working with any business, but especially in a law firm, it could be family law where it's talking about divorce or inheritance or any type of, it could be real estate, but these are generally you're talking to a lawyer when it's a significant moment in your life. It could be you're buying a property. It could be a person's, going through a divorce or bereavement and they have to settle the will or division of assets. It could be a merger and acquisition. But if you're talking to a lawyer, there's a good chance this is a pretty significant and quite possibly very stressful period in your life. And therefore, you want to know the person you're talking to and the business you're working with have your best interests at heart. And that's where personalization really comes into it. And what we see is just a little bit of extra personalization and leveraging, tools are only as good as the tech tools that we have at a disposable are only as powerful as the people using them. If you don't leverage them properly, if you don't set them up properly, if you don't operate them properly, you're always going to say, oh, well, it's just not working. You need someone behind it who's really overseeing. And that's where personalization and what we found, just in our line of business is working with the firms we work with, leveraging, for example, Rob, you touched on 98% of text messages are read, right? People are bombarded with emails. And especially when you get a reply or some sort of billing email, people kind of want to ignore them, push them off till later. But having a text message saying, hey, Rob, it was great doing business with you. Really enjoyed it. Hope you're happy with the work. By the way, your bill is due, next week, Tuesday. You can click here to pay. Just that personalization. Meet your clients where they are. If they're on their phones, if they're out and about, send them a text message. Allow them to pay on a text message. Allow them to receive the documents that they need to review in a text message or from their phones. Make sure it's optimized for reading on a phone screen. These types of innovations are allowing firms to operate far more efficiently, but also create that culture of client centricity where the client feels you're reaching them where they are. They have the opportunity, in our case, to pay from their phone, but also to review documents, to have those conversations, on the go. And they feel that you really do have their best interests at heart. They're much more inclined to work more effectively and efficiently with you.
Thanks. And I think that's a key point, is really being able to meet the clients where they are, right? I think that's a very key point. And Robert, we were touching a little bit on client centricity and meeting clients where they are. I want to kind of flip the script here and talk a little bit about, another point that you raised around talent and retention, which is definitely an area of key interest, right? So how do we actually, how can firms and how can digital tools enable firms to support talent attainment and retention, right? And ultimately meet candidates and good quality candidates where they are as well.
Yeah, no, and I just want to say, Yuri, fascinating points. So really enjoying learning from you today as well. So it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I think there's a couple of, initial points I would make. Legal tech modernization will help law firms to attract and keep, because it's very expensive recruitment. Agencies like us, we're not cheap, so it's important that we see this as not only in terms of attracting but also retaining, because the more tech enabled your environments are to enable your lawyers to do their job to their best advantage, it's only going to increase your retention levels. And you can look at the statistics. 78%, 76% of legal professionals have the ability to track and retain talent as one of the top 3 trends as we go over the next 3 years. So what can you actually do? Number one, I'm a big believer in fair work allocation. Okay, so you can use a tech platform such as Capacity, which is spelled as it sounds, Capacity, and it's a great tool for law firms and actually for the next generation of work distribution using that technology, because it uses data and ensures that there's a smarter work allocation, meaning you have happier lawyers, more diverse and inclusive teams. What else does that sort of technology do? It removes the bias from any workplace decisions as well, because historically people have had their favorites, but this improves the overall well-being, resulting in retention levels actually going up higher, because it can distribute workloads, it can allocate resources based on data-driven insights, not office politics. I think that's a really big point there in terms of removing that. It's a very data-driven decision. Also, as well as lawyers more from home, it's imperative to remove the bias when it comes to decisions increasing as well. And I think, an equitable work environment, so law firm partners, unit partners have the technology to make analytical decisions driven on creating a consistent and uniform experience across the firm. So creating a safe environment where top performers can thrive, and also maybe where some of the support performers might be struggling right now, is an environment where they can actually get back up to speed where they need to be. I think it can also help increase efficiency in terms of retention. I've talked about that. So what can you do? You can automate a lot of the low value work, the redundant tasks that actually burn out the lawyers and actually reduces their patience and their enthusiasm for the job. You can actually make sure you can enable more connections among those siloed systems to give lawyers fast access to information and resources that they need to get their job done. You can actually analyze the data to discover more profitable work avenues as well. So you can actually give more effective strategies and deliver up within the firm, but also down, and give people maybe better quality work as well. I think flexibility, super important. You know, we're in this world now of remote work. 76% of lawyers want to choose the hours that they work. That's off the CLEAR report. So law firms that give systems and platforms that allow people to work when they want to work is a very attractive prospect in terms of attracting talent. Driving higher performance rates as well. Those analytics can quickly, I mentioned, spot low performers, so you can remedy solutions a lot quicker, so it doesn't get to the extent where maybe somebody might feeling that they're underperforming, that they might have to look elsewhere, they don't have the support of the team. You can be proactive in terms of supporting and providing management so these people can get up to speed where they need to be. Other things around attraction, social media, we can't hide from it. It's not a game. It's actually a great way to build your law firm profile, but also the people within your law firm's profiles to get that relatable, human, personal content that Yuri was talking about to attract people to your law firm. So Shoesmiths, I think they're one of the greatest law firms to watch online right now, and they're doing a great job of acquiring the next generation of talent. Why? Because they understand that TikTok isn't just a game. They understand that Instagram isn't just a game. They're seeing that YouTube shorts are coming out. Why am I launching a whole new short form video business connected to helping law firms actually stand out online? I see huge uptick in potential, and this is serious stuff where people can attract and get that next generation of talent because you're meeting people where they're at. Other things you can do. Let's talk about Web3, meta lounges. So you're probably seeing lots of people with avatars and lots of things about the metaverse over the last few days on your social media handles. But think about it from an interview experience. Imagine you have your own virtual lounge. You can actually conduct interviews in there. You can provide a platform. Look at something like spatial.io, where people can go through your virtual gallery. Maybe it has presented on the side all of the amazing cases you've won, or some of your press cuttings, or the media you've been involved in. They go through this virtual experience of success and get a real feel for the culture of your firm. And you have a sort of welcome mat, a digital welcome mat, which is a slightly different interview experience rather than just jumping on a Zoom or jumping on another Teams meeting. You're providing a better experience, personalized experience, using the technology that's out there. And video, I mentioned, is definitely there to stay. It's the next generation of talent are used to video. You can screen candidates also. You can get a lot better feel for a candidate with a 5-minute video than you can just a 2-piece piece of paper, in my opinion. So it's really important that you embrace that, not only in terms of attraction, but also making sure that you make people feel like they can be themselves and express a video to apply for your law firm, and not just sticking to a piece of paper where they're being judged. So I'll stop there, but hopefully that helps.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, you touched on, you know, a few different elements from a talent and retention perspective, and you also touched on the metaverse, which kind of brings me to you know, our next question, which is really, you know, there are a number of tools that, you know, that are out there. But, you know, what are some key areas that you think law firms should be monitoring closely going forward? You know, not just for talent and retention, but also for other purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. Web3 technology we should be paying attention to. And there's a great quote from, I forget who quotes this, so apologies, but they say, there are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. And I definitely think we're in that experience now in terms of the sort of speed of technology and what we're going to see with this Web3 digital revolution. So, you know, in the next decade, almost every sector, retail, e-commerce, media, entertainment, healthcare, tech, you name it, is going to adopt Web3 technology in their operations. I think Gartner released a report that's saying by 2026, 25% of people will spend at least 1 hour in the metaverse, either for work, shopping, education, entertainment. So the metaverse virtual meetings, like it or lump it, they are going to become the standard over the in-person. And McKinsey, who we're all very aware of, predicts that, I think their report said 5 was it 5 trillion by 2030 in terms of spending. So this is definitely something you want to be paying attention to in terms of Web3 technology and how you can incorporate within your business. What are some of the exciting new features? So if you're a litigator or in disputes, there are things like MetaCore, which you may never have heard of, which is the first legal metaverse that offers on-chain mediation and game theory arbitration-based mechanisms where self-execution enforcement tools on the Solana blockchain, all of these which aims to create a safe journey in Web3. So look at these sort of new emerging technologies that are coming out to try and disrupt traditional, practices. Look at blockchain technology. It's super. Everything is going to be built on blockchain technology, and that's expected to grow by 86% on an annual growth rate. So Coder's law, a lot of you may be familiar with that concept of Coder law, but it basically means transactions of all sorts that are shifted onto blockchain platforms. So some suggest that the code should replace or could replace many aspects when it comes to certain transactions or parts of the law. So super interesting to see how these evolve, but I'll be paying attention to things like Polygon, Solana, because these sort of blockchains also, they have environmental. You want to think of it from an ESG perspective. You want to make sure you're using the most sustainable, eco-friendly technology within your organization. I think it's very important to think about that. Smart contracts are going to become more and more into play. AR and VR, I've talked about it, but augmented reality, I gave a kind of short example of that with that interview experience, and virtual reality. It's going to become more and more of a reality that this is becoming the norm, rather at the moment it's still the novelty. Digital assets and social tokens. So I created the world's first legal cryptocurrency called Legal. And it was a great experiment. But what does this provide? It provides decentralized ownership. So we're moving into this decentralized world where companies can create their own communities and economies within their communities to create social token. There's going to be huge legal demand for that. So as a lawyer, I'd be really looking, particularly on that tech side, looking at the economies within communities in terms of social tokens and digital assets, because that's going to be a huge growth area. So I'll be paying attention to that. Content, we've talked a lot about personalized and having a good content creation strategy, ensuring that you're talking to your audience and using that to attract the talent, and thinking about accessibility and social mobility as well. Very important, because we're more globally connected through technology, and hopefully with the right adoption, this can actually increase accessibility to the masses generally. And lastly, they're no longer just picture jokes, NFTs. We're starting to see more and more utilization of these, but I don't think they're going to be a fad. I think they will be taken seriously. We've not gone over the curve as yet, but I would think of an NFT as a unique key to your law firm where you can offer something to your prospective client. So it could be access to resources. It could be access to 30 minutes of your time, 60 minutes of your time, an hour of your time. It could be access to an event that you're speaking at. All these little ways of actually an NFT where it can actually build a relationship. So you can use technology to enhance your relationship, but also keep clients locked in. And also you can give them rewards and actually benefit them, for actually being loyal. We're going to see more of these loyalty systems through NFTs. You can look at, Starbucks, what they've just recently launched with Odyssey and how they're doing their loyalty programs. So there's going to be a lot more of those happening, and I'll be paying attention to NFTs because I believe they're very much here to stay. And there's obviously a lot of a big legal debate about them, but I think they will become more and more, and I'll be paying attention to them. So I'll pause there.
Perfect. And as we go, we'll also invite, members of the audience. We have our chat open. So, we'll invite members of the audience for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to throw those in, and we'll connect with our panelists as well. As we go through, we've touched on a number of different key digital trends and digital tools. For any of the audience members here, maybe Robert, we'll start with yourself. What are some tips or best practices that you have for them as they're looking to undertake digital transformation?
Yeah, really important question, because this is all well and good, but at the end of the day, we've got to make it happen. So the first thing I would say is sell the vision and the solution. So what do I mean by that? You have to sell the benefits to the people and the reason why doing what you're doing is going to be a benefit to them. Remember, everyone's favorite radio station, WIFM, what's in it for me? Okay, so if you can really research and use the data and actually convince people through data-driven processes and data, the evidence is there, it's going to be far easier in terms of selling that vision and solution to people, rather than, hey, we're seeing all these other people do some digital transformation, we're going to go at it, and this is why we think it's good because we've been reading about it. No, what's in it for the people that you're going to be taking on the journey? Delivery, time, it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. So small incremental changes add up rather than trying to do everything in one fell swoop. Communication. It's better to be clear than it is to be clever. And it's something I should yield more of my own advice on because it's so important. You need to be transparent. It's not going to be plain sailing. There are going to be hiccups. There are going to be issues. I've never met anyone who's gone through mass transformation or any form of transformation without some sort of hiccups. But don't overcomplicate things. Educate, inform, and don't make out that you know everything. Sometimes some transparency will actually build more trust. And embrace that you're always going to have to learn along the way. Yuri was talking about this earlier around some of the tools. Training. Make sure you have training in place to ensure that people know what they need to be doing, when they need to be doing it, and how they're going to be able to do it. Okay. Costs. It's not always the most expensive, shiny thing that you see that you need to invest in. It's what's right for your business. So always have a look at pricing, and everything is negotiable. Personalization, we've talked a lot about, so I don't want to dwell on that for too much time, but using personalization, profile building features, personalized interactions with your stakeholders, managing those relationship spaces and really keeping it personal is certainly going to help in terms of that digital transformation. And just remember that, you know, ultimately it's going to take work, and don't get too overwhelmed. Just make sure you keep making those marginal steps forward every single piece at a time, because I always talk about those 1% improvements over time will make a mass transformation. So yeah, I'll pause there.
And Yuri, same question for you. What tips do you have as well for the audiences they're looking to undertake the journey?
Sure. So I think that, you know, something really fascinating, one of the fascinating trends I'm seeing is twofold. One is, if you like, bottoms up innovation, meaning it's often the younger members of the firm, the more junior associates who are exposed to the technology, whereas the more senior associates have been doing things in a particular manner or particular fashion for a very long time. And it's creating the culture within the firm where a junior associate can come and say, you know, this is what I'm seeing. They're more likely to be on TikTok. They're more likely to be on Instagram or leveraging YouTube Shorts. And actually, I've seen this in a number of firms. Rob, you mentioned a few, but where it's actually the junior associates or sometimes the younger partners who are coming and saying, look, we need to be talking about this. Recently, we had I did an interview with a firm, and they said, we're talking about crypto and tax. No one's talking about, you know, are your crypto assets taxable? What do you have to pay? Do you know about tax? And one of the junior partners came in and said, look, I'm going to go out. I'm just going to, he did a video, and it was Ben Rosen at Questel's, and he went round London asking people, do you own crypto? Yes. Okay. And well, do you know your tax position? Do you know the law around what you have to pay and don't have to pay and what you have to do? And people were clueless. And he said, as a firm, we need to be addressing this for our clients. So it's very much about creating the culture of being able to listen to what your sometimes the younger members of your team are saying, but what they've got their finger on that pulse and they know what's going on. The other thing that Rob, you also addressed is stakeholder management, user adoption. You can introduce the best and most efficient and most cost-effective technologies, but if you don't have a strong and solid user adoption, and that often is from the top down, you need to see senior partners, senior admin members using the new technology, being trained on the new technology, and actually demonstrating the utility and the value of the technology that you introduce. If you simply introduce it, and I've seen it time and time again, a new technology is introduced, it's thrown at people, they already have 1,000,001 things on their to-do list, and now it's just another thing I have to deal, and it actually becomes an inefficiency because they have to log in, they have to start looking through these data points or updating profiles, and it becomes an inefficiency because it's not being leveraged properly. If they are trained properly and they are shown, and that example is made often by the senior staff, then the implementation is much more successful, and you'll often see that efficiency and reap the rewards. You'll get your ROI, your return on investment, because you'll see those efficiencies coming through because it's used perhaps firm-wide. Everyone in your team is effectively using it and implementing it, and then you'll have that visibility. I even saw one new technology that's used by accountancy and law firms, and it documents your reply rate on questions coming in from clients. So how quickly, and you can actually score, I don't know if you want to do this, but you can score your fee earners on how quickly they're replying. And they showed us their data, and they said, look, you've got some people who are replying within half an hour. You have other fee earners, and it's taking them 4 or 5 days to get back to clients. That's highlighting a real efficiency problem. That means that particular member of the team, there needs to be some address as to why they're taking so long to get back to their clients, why there's this holdup that will result in cash flow problems, that will result in cases rolling over for months and months and not being resolved. And that causes more and more inefficiency within the firms. When you have that visibility, again, it's about visibility of data. You can have the data, but you need to have visibility into the data to help drive, coupled with user adoption, to drive the digital change within any business.
Fantastic. Thanks, Yuri. And maybe we'll just take a pause. We're starting to get in some questions from our broader audience. So first question, and maybe Robert, I'll start with yourself. Comes from René Martin, who's asking, how do you think AI will actually help, their law firm to be more productive, for example, with contract review? So what types of technologies are you seeing that, and how is that, from your conversations help law firms as they're, trying to increase their productivity?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would say in terms of AI generally, it's here to support and save time, but also enables you to build more relationships with your clients. Because if you can use it in a way where actually it's saving you a lot of time, you can invest that actually in more the personalization time or the face time with your client. So I don't know if you mentioned, we talked about this, but let's just take the case example that's happening right now in terms of the ChatGPT. If you're able just to put into a couple of lines, please send an email about X, Y, and Z, and it can document it, it can personalize it, it can make it really warm, really fuzzy, saves you hours of time actually trying to create stuff. That's a great way to enhance that relationship, and it's letting the AI do a lot of the hard work for you. Another tool that I think is a great piece to do as well is think about it from a marketing perspective. Let's say you are going through a heavy document, and let's say you're trying to maybe showcase that you specialize in that particular area, but that's not going to resonate with your audience. You can't just put a load of legalese and tech jargon out to the individuals. What you could use is a platform like Jasper.ai, for example, which is a great platform where you could put that particular content of that contract, and it can content summarize it for you. You can put it into 2 or 3 interesting bullet points or concise points that may be easier for your client to understand, but also for your audience to understand what you do and how you can engage them and how they can bring more, how potentially, oh, okay, so that's what you do. I get that now. That's great. So I'm actually getting in touch with that individual because they put it in 4 short, sharp bullet points, or they put that into a snappy video, or they put that into an infographic. So there's just a couple of things I would say in terms of AI and how you can utilize it in a couple of tools or platforms you could use that, you could reuse that and hopefully get more productivity and also create more time, but also develop the client relationships. Remember, we talked a lot about today about client-centered. All of this AI and tech, the way I see it, is actually how can we increase that client relationship, because competition for legal services is going to continue. And so the more that you really center yourselves around the client experience, the better you're going to be.
And Yuri, same question to you. We've touched upon, AI and machine learning and client centricity. What are your thoughts around this and productivity?
Sure. So absolutely, I can only reiterate what Rob said. We are going to see a lot more AI in the workplace. Again, it's often running in the background. And it's small things that we often think of this big AI machine that's going to be dictating how we do everything. I think what we're going to start seeing is small incremental improvements. So whether, in what we do at Kolleno, it's just in terms of suggesting a next step. So our AI will run a collection sequence. It will communicate with the client in a personalized manner, but then it's going to suggest, look, this client has had these number of communications. They've not responded. This is a suggested next step. You have to call them using this language. So this is a types of changes we're going to see, where there's a lot of we're already seeing those real-time technologies in terms of AI suggesting, based on the patterns that it's recording, these are the suggested best next steps. And I've seen technologies now in terms of meeting recordings. So forgive me, I've forgotten the name of the company, a startup where they're recording meetings. So when you sit down with your client, it will record the meeting and then not only provide you a transcript, but also, you can click and have legal definitions, terminologies that will clarify any vagueness around what is the law, isn't the law in particular, in particular areas. So you can really have access to information instantly. And I think that's where we're going to really drive efficiency, and people, law firms are going to be able to handle a much larger caseloads, because so much of the research and the background information and just the documentation will be, so to speak, run through AI, that there's just going to be the suggested, it's going to be a menu every time. You select these points. This is what you need to action. This is what you need to confirm. And that's where the AI is really going to play a huge role in driving efficiency, but also cutting down the wasted time in manual actions, that kind of laborious work of going through a document page by page, step by step, where you, like Rob mentioned, you'll have a quick summary and be able to review those bullet points, and anything that's flagged, you'll be able to click into that as well. I think those are what we're going to start to see. Those changes we'll start to see as a lot more common over the coming months and years.
And I just quickly build on just another quick tool, because I absolutely agree with what you said, Yuri. And an example is some mobile apps now. There's like iAnnotate, which is great for reviewing and marking up documents from basically anywhere. And that also allows you to sync the documents from multiple sources online. So you're talking about collaborating with your teams and you're on the move or you're on the go somewhere. What a great application to be able to co-work and actually share and use the power of the AI to make that happen. So that's just another quick little tool that I thought I'd mention. And then another quick tool, again, if you're looking for sort of industry news or things that are happening, trending topics. Maybe you want to newsjack, for example. I'm a big advocate of newsjacking, which is basically stuff that's going on in the world, how you can put a personal spin on it that's actually relevant, while you can gauge that audience, gauge that attendance that's happening. So you've seen, it's great examples you may have seen on LinkedIn. A lot of people have been using the Japanese football manager from the World Cup. Obviously, the World Cup's top right now. They're using his image. They're trying to put a personal swim on it, and obviously they're getting high levels of engagement because there's real audience attached to it. So there's a thing called Feedly, which is basically staying informed with your trending topics, and that's your most known content. So check that out. You'll be able to find out some of those stories. And again, you let that tech do the work for you and allow you to, put yourselves out there.
Fantastic. Another question from the audience, are you seeing similar trends across different sectors? And specifically, are there any groundbreaking methods that you're seeing used in other sectors, for some of the areas that we discussed? So maybe, Yuri, I'll start with you on this one. Are there any things that we're seeing outside of the legal industry, any groundbreaking methods, that can really help to inform, how the industry itself approaches, their digital journey?
Absolutely. We're seeing this across multiple sectors. So this is not unique to the legal sector. We're seeing across the construction sector. I was at an expo last week and I saw the number of new technologies leveraging AI, everything from, scanning physical environments and building a digital environment, which are super high resolution. And you can measure literally from your pen on your desk to your cup of coffee on your desk, all the way through to medical technologies, the hospitality sector. So we're seeing gamification, we're seeing AI, we're seeing digital implementation across literally every single sector. And I think that will continue to grow, and these will become the norm. And what we will, as the end user, I think the fundamental difference will be the level of user adoption. So that's, when looking at, and this is a challenge for any business, when you're looking at new technologies, you always have to bear in mind or factor in, how am I going to create adoption within my business or within my clientele across this, whatever the technology I'm introducing. I know for us here at Kolleno, we've had clients who've come to us simply because they have been clients of our clients. So they've been on the receiving end of our technology in terms of our custom payment portal. And they say, hey, I want to have my clients pay me through a payment portal like this. And they've come to us and saying, they've gone to their supplier and said, what technology are you using? They've now implemented it, and they've had, their consent to their clients a custom payment portal, which is with their, logos, and the clients can make payments through all the different payment gateways. But this is the type of trends we'll see across all of the industries, whether it's AI or gamification or the Web3. We're going to see every industry we know is going to radically change, I believe, over the next 10 to 15 years. And it's going to become radically more data-driven, but also personalized, meeting your customer, meeting your client where they are. Am I shopping on my phone now instead of in the stores? Am I talking to my doctor? The number of therapy-based apps now for you can book an appointment, have a appointment on my phone with a doctor, with a therapist, with a consultant, whoever I need to speak to, from my home, from my living room, from my bedroom, whatever what I need is going to be primarily in the digital space. And I think these trends are going to see proliferate, across every industry in the next 10 to 15 years.
Perfect. And just taking a look at the chat here as well, Robert, I know that there are a number of members of the audience that have asked, for some specifics around some of the tools that you've mentioned. So just wanted to confirm with audience members that after this, we will also be sharing back the video. Robert, we can also connect with you as well, just to get some of the other tools that you mentioned, like Jasper as well.
Yeah. I'm very happy to do that. And if anyone wants to follow me and send me a message, I'm more than happy to help. I just want to build on Yuri, because Yuri made some great points. This is everywhere. Remember what I said, McKinsey, have predicted its prediction, but, just get that number of 5 trillion by 2030 in your head in terms of metaverse spending. So you can see, let's use some other examples. Formula One have now releasing digital tokens connected to how they can build community and build super fans and fans to keep interest within the sport, and using that gamification. Nike, they were one of the first organizer companies within the retail space to really look at their metaverse and understanding how you can use NFTs. So this is going to revolutionize, particularly change that retail and fashion that's been heavy hit over the last few years. I think this is a real opportunity for them to stay ahead. An obvious point that we haven't talked about, but if you're an intellectual property lawyer, you're in data or something like that, you're going to be super, super busy, and you want to start getting connected to NFT creators, artists, 3D artists, all of these startup entrepreneurs, because they're going to have hockey stick businesses, that's for sure, and they're going to need some real legal counsel about how they can register their virtual trademarks, how they can secure their IP. So really important point to make sure that people are aware of that.
Perfect. And as we close out, one final question that I know it's going to be top of mind for our audience members, and has been shared with us as leading up to the event is, we've talked about a number of different technologies here, but what's the first step? How can firms take the first step? What should they be thinking about when they take the first step? To adopt digital tools? I know that's a really broad question, but I think a very important one for our audience. So maybe Robert, I'll kick off with you on that one.
Yeah, and maybe it's not what people expect me to say, but we've talked a lot about meeting people where they're at and that understanding. So if you're not good at that, you need to practice your influencing skills, because transformation isn't easy, but it's really worth it. It's like one of the best, most rewarding things. So, leaders of transformation who are pushing out digital tools need to be able to influence and make changes. And there's 2 secrets I would give when it comes to trying to influence people and take them along the journey. Firstly, you need to efficiently and effectively articulate your idea and remember why it matters and why it's important to them. And then you need to persuade people to think like you and change those closed mindsets. If you can master those 2 things at the start of the journey, you're going to have huge influence as you go along. The second very obvious point is just start. A third point I would say is network and have mentors. Collaborate with people in your community. Speak to people who have already gone through a journey. Who are you impressed by? Who you've been inspired by? What are some of the mistakes they made? They could save you hours of time in terms of the pains they went through. So actually think about mentors. Attending events like today, great. Obviously connecting with people that are in these spaces. Set targets, because what gets measured gets done. So important to keep yourself accountable and set targets. And the last point, it kind of builds on mentors, is don't be afraid to ask for help. Nobody knows everything. So be open to asking for help. And I know as lawyers, you think you're meant to know absolutely everything and be 100% right all of the time. Be humble, ask for help. It'll help you so much more in terms of going on your journey.
Perfect. And Yuri, with our minute left, anything additional to add to that?
Again, I would say, Rob, just touching on what you said of talk to other people who have implemented the technology successfully, but I think also highlight what your objectives. What is the ideal outcome that you want to achieve with this technology? A lot of people go into a technology purchasing process and they say, and then they get caught up in all the features and they forget what am I actually trying to achieve with this technology. So have that top of mind. What is the outcome I'm trying to achieve, implement it, and then it's going to be user buy-in. Just have, who are your end users? Are they properly trained? Do they understand the purpose of this purchase? Do they understand the efficiency that you're trying to achieve? Do they understand the outcome and the goal that you're trying to implement with this technology? And then on top of that, it's going to be, how do they have the tools? Do they have the time? Do they have the training to implement this technology appropriately? Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to, the technology is only as good as the person at the end of it pressing the buttons.
And that's a great segue, Dan. So Yuri and Robert, thank you so much for your time. To every member of the audience, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be sharing a recording and a list of tools as a follow-up to this. So thank you all once again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Rob. Always good to talk to you.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.